an overachiever. I really struggle with perfectionism. Have you ever said either of these during a job interview? If so, chances are you are answering, "What is your greatest weakness?" and you weren't doing a very good job at answering it. I'm Jen, and I'll help you figure out how to answer the question, "What is your greatest weakness?" in the best way. If you're new here, my channel is all about helping smart, career-minded professionals stand out in today's job market. At some point during any job interview, you're probably expecting to get the question, "What is your greatest weakness?" or some variation, like, "If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?" Or, "What would your last manager say that your greatest weakness is?" I think this last one is especially interesting because it forces you to think from another person's perspective. It also speaks to why perfectionism and overachieving aren't really weaknesses that you should mention during your job interview. Sure, these things definitely can be weaknesses overall if you overdo them, but you know that's not what people are looking for during a job interview. A lot of people talk about these two types of things and other similar perceived weaknesses that are really strengths during a job interview because somewhere along the way someone told them this is what they were supposed to do, that you don't want to show your weakness, you want to only talk about your strengths. In this case, a little bit of honesty can go a long way though. Managers have heard perfectionism and overachievers or workaholic tons of times and nobody ever believes it. Or if you're so extreme on it, then that is a negative and they probably are a little bit concerned about you as a candidate. As a hiring manager, I knew that when I asked people, "What's your greatest weakness?" or "Tell me about your weaknesses," that most of them were going to tell me something positive instead. And I wasn't really asking because I cared specifically about the weakness. I was asking because I wanted to know, one, how honest they were going to be, but more importantly, or equally as important at least, is the second reason, I wanted to know how they perceived themselves. Were they a good judge at what they were good at and what they were bad at? Because if they couldn't tell me what they were bad at, and we're all bad at something, then why should I fully trust what they say that they're good at? So I liked being able to get a little bit of response from people in this area. I know as on the candidate side, it's a really intimidating question. You don't really want to say, "Hey, I'm bad at this," because you think that what you're saying is, "Don't hire me." Really, on the interviewer's side, they want to know, how well do you know yourself and what are your areas that you perceive you need to work on? So what kind of answer is a good answer to give here that doesn't turn the interviewer off because you answer with something that's really a strength, or doesn't go the other extreme and it's so bad that they are concerned about that weakness as well? There is a fine line that you need to walk during your interview between appearing confident, being confident that you can do the job, and crossing over that line into seeming arrogant or like you know everything that you could possibly know about the job and there's nothing you could ever learn in the role, there's nothing anyone could teach you. That's always a concern when hiring. You don't want someone that's not going to listen to anybody around them, because even if they know a lot about the job, there's always something that you can learn from the people around you. So here's the type of things that I would expect to hear in a good answer to this question. In order to answer this question in a really good way, you're going to want to tailor your answer a little bit to each interview you go on. So the weakness that you bring up in one job interview may be very different than the weakness you bring up in another job interview. Here's what you should be looking at. First, sit down with a copy of the job description. Look through the skills that you need for that. What are the ones that you know that you have to be really good at? If you're a programmer and you need to be programming using Python, you don't want to say, "My biggest weakness is my Python programming skills." You want to pick something that's not central to the job like that. And the same with any other role. There are going to be things that you know are critical to the role. So definitely skip over talking about those as a weakness. Instead, identify something else, whether it's something that's minor in the job role or not quite in the job at all. Maybe if you're in a non-managerial position, one of your weaknesses that you could talk about is, I would like to improve my leadership skills. This is something that isn't central to the job. It's a genuine weakness that you can work on. It doesn't hurt your chances of getting the job. It shows some awareness and it identifies something that you can work on. After you've looked at the key skills for the job and thought about how that relates to things you actually can improve on, you can go ahead and prepare your answer. So here's something that could be really common for people. You could say something like, I have difficulty speaking in front of large groups of people. A few months ago, I joined Toastmasters to help me improve my skills in this area. Notice I gave two parts to that answer. I talked about my weakness, but then I went on to talk about how I'm trying to fix it. This is a great way to answer this question because you're not just answering what's your greatest weakness, you're answering what's your greatest weakness and what are you doing to improve on it, which is really key. You've identified it as a problem and you're working towards the solution. Talking in front of people, especially large groups, is definitely a weakness that a lot of people have. In fact, some researchers say that people have a greater fear of public speaking than death, which seems a bit extreme to me, but it also seems safe to say that there's a good chance that this might be your weakness, or that it at least triggers some ideas of what you can talk about when it comes to weaknesses. Then follow up with, what are you doing to fix it? So if you're uncomfortable in groups of people, it could be forcing yourselves to talk in front of groups of people, or doing some communication training that helps you build these skills. If your weakness is on a software that you know could be helpful, but you don't use very much and isn't a central part of the job, it could be that you're taking training classes. None of this has to be stuff that costs money either. You can work on skills and build skills for free. And really, you just want to tell the interviewer, hey, I know this is a problem, I'm doing something about it. So this is exactly how you should answer questions when you're asked, what is your greatest weakness? I'm curious though, what would you say your greatest weakness is? Are you among the majority of the population that hates talking in front of groups of people? Or maybe you love talking in front of groups of people, but you get nervous one-on-one, or maybe it's something else. What would you say the weakness that you want to work on is, or what are you doing to work on that weakness? Let me know in the comments. If you're preparing for job interviews, which I'm guessing you are because you're watching this video, I have a whole collection of things that will help you get ready. So check out the other videos on the channel. I've also put together a cheat sheet that walks you through the 5 key steps to landing your next job. You can get your free copy at the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I see you next time.